Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I want to dive into a topic that might make some people pause, others laugh, and perhaps even inspire a collective aha moment. Why men are powerless against women like this. It's a bold statement, isn't it? Yet beneath its boldness lies a profound truth, a truth rooted not in battles or rivalry, but in the sheer force of connection, understanding, and emotional intelligence. We're not here to talk about women as conquerors of men. This isn't a war story. We're here to talk about what makes women so magnetic, so influential, and so undeniably powerful that the strongest defenses crumble in their presence. And that imagine a woman standing before you, her voice steady, her gaze direct, and her words unguarded. She speaks not to impress or to intimidate, but to connect. She shares a moment of her life, perhaps a failure, a heartbreak, or even an insecurity. For a fleeting second, you sense her humanity so vividly that it stirs something deep within you. That is the power of vulnerability. When we connect with our audience, they so easily create relationships with us and feel connected. It's a concept we often misunderstand, isn't it? We equate vulnerability with weakness, a crack in the armor we've carefully constructed to shield ourselves from judgment or rejection. Yet the truth is far from that. Vulnerability is not about falling apart. It's about showing up fully, courageously, and without pretense. And when a woman does this, she becomes irresistible in ways that transcend appearances or accomplishments. For centuries, men have been conditioned to view strength as stoicism, as the ability to remain unaffected and composed no matter what life throws their way. To survive, many men learn to bear their feelings and build walls around their hearts. But when they encounter a woman who has embraced vulnerability, who walks through the world unashamed of her emotions, they're faced with a force they don't know how to resist. She holds a mirror to them, showing what is possible when we dare to be seen as we are. Think about it. Vulnerability in its purest form is an act of trust. When a woman says, "This is who I am, scars and all," she's not asking for sympathy. She's offering something rare: authenticity. She's saying, "I trust myself enough to show up fully, and I trust you enough to handle my truth." That kind of confidence isn't just compelling, it's magnetic. It challenges the people around her to let their guard down too. For many men, this can feel both liberating and terrifying. To be in the presence of someone who has no need to hide, no interest in playing games, can strip away the excuses we use to avoid emotional depth. It's hard to remain aloof when someone is looking you in the eye, not with judgment, but with the openness that says, "You don't have to pretend with me." And yet, that's precisely why vulnerability is so powerful. It's disarming, it doesn't demand, it invites, it doesn't overpower, it empowers. A woman who embraces vulnerability doesn't need to control a room or dominate a conversation to be heard. Her authenticity speaks louder than any bravado ever could. Our courageous vulnerability speaks louder than any bravado ever could. What's more, vulnerability isn't just about sharing struggles, it's also about celebrating joys, hopes, and dreams without fear of being ridiculed. Imagine a woman who speaks openly about her ambitions, even when they seem impossible, or someone who laughs unabashedly, not worrying about how she's perceived. That kind of freedom is contagious. It's a reminder that life isn't about perfection. It's about being present and real. This kind of vulnerability, when embraced, creates an undeniable connection. It taps into a universal truth. We all want to be seen, understood, and loved, not for who we pretend to be, but for who we truly are. That is, for men, this can be a transformative experience. Vulnerability invites them into a space where they can put down their shields, even if just for a moment. It's an unspoken permission to let go of the expectations that weigh so heavily. And in doing so, they discover that strength isn't about hiding weakness, it's about having the courage to face it. The greatest gift that you can give yourself is to free yourself to be vulnerable, even if it means losing relationships. So why are men powerless against women like this? Because vulnerability isn't just an act of courage, it's an act of leadership. It says, I'll go first. I'll take the risk of being real so that you can too. And in a world that often rewards superficiality, that kind of authenticity is a revolution. Certainly, here's the expanded section focused on courage to connect, written in an integrated, seamless manner. There's something remarkable about the way certain women engage with the world, particularly in their relationships. They possess a kind of courage that doesn't come from power in the traditional sense, but from a deep-rooted desire to connect. These women aren't afraid to wade into the murky waters of human emotion. They don't shy away from difficult conversations or turn their backs on vulnerability when it's required to bridge a gap. Instead, they lean in, not because it's easy, but because they know it's necessary. Picture a woman who looks at you, not just in passing, but truly looks. Her attention isn't distracted by the noise of the world or the thousand things vying for her time. Her gaze holds curiosity and intention, as if to say, I see you and I want to understand you. In that moment, something profound begins to shift. You feel noticed, valued, and understood in a way that's rare. That's the courage to connect. It's not about surface level exchanges or fleeting moments of interest. It's about diving deeper even when it feels uncomfortable. A woman with this kind of courage doesn't settle for half-hearted answers or superficial dialogue. When she asks, how are you? She doesn't let you get away with the autopilot response of, I'm fine. She asks again with more intention. No, really, how are you? And there's something in the way she asks it, something genuine that makes it almost impossible not to answer. Okay? So this is where her power lies. She creates space for honesty. In a world that often rewards facades and deflection, her willingness to connect on a deeper level is both surprising and disarming. For many men who have been conditioned to equate emotional distance with strength, this can feel like uncharted territory. Yet it's also magnetic because deep down, we all crave connection. What makes his courage so extraordinary is that it isn't without risk. To truly connect with someone requires vulnerability. It means putting your heart on the line, knowing that it might not be met with the same openness. It means being willing to ask the hard questions, even when you're not sure you'll like the answers. And it means staying present even when the emotions are intense or the conversation takes an unexpected turn. But women with the courage to connect don't back down from these challenges. They know that real relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or professional, are built on a foundation of trust and authenticity. They know that connection isn't something that just happens. It's something you create moment by moment through intention and care. And only with learning those core values from your life experiences can you recognize others. For men, encountering this kind of courage can be both humbling and inspiring. It's a reminder that connection isn't about control or convenience. It's about mutual respect and shared vulnerability. It challenges them to step outside of their comfort zones and meet her where she is, not with defenses up, but with openness and sincerity. And it's not just about the big dramatic gestures. The courage to connect often shows up in the small everyday moments. It's in the way she listens, not just to respond, but to truly hear. It's in the way she remembers the details of your stories, the ones you thought no one noticed. It's in the way she checks in, not out of obligation, but because she genuinely cares about how you're doing. These moments may seem ordinary, but they hold extraordinary power. They create a ripple effect, fostering trust and intimacy in ways that transform relationships. Over time, they break down walls, allowing for a level of closeness that can't be achieved through surface level interactions. And yet, this kind of connection isn't one-sided. Women who have the courage to connect don't just give, they also invite. They create a space where you feel safe enough to share your own truths, no matter how messy or imperfect they might be. They remind you that connection isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. This courage isn't loud or forceful. It doesn't demand attention or validation. Instead, it operates quietly, consistently, and with purpose. It's the kind of courage that transforms not just relationships, but lives, because it shows us what's possible when we choose connection over isolation, understanding over judgment, and love over fear. Men often find themselves drawn to women like this because they offer something rare, the chance to be fully seen and fully accepted. And in a world where so many of us feel unseen or misunderstood, that kind of connection is nothing short of revolutionary. So if you're like most women out there, being dated can be much more difficult than being undated. So when you encounter a woman who embodies this courage, who dares to connect in a way that's real and unapologetic, you may find yourself powerless to resist, not because she's trying to overpower you, but because she's inviting you to meet her on the same level, heart to heart, soul to soul. Of all the qualities that create a lasting impact, few are as transformative as empathy. It's a quiet force, often mistaken for softness or sentimentality, yet it has the power to shift perspectives, heal wounds, and build bridges where none existed before. When a woman wields empathy with intention, she doesn't just connect with those around her, she changes them. Imagine a moment when you felt deeply understood, when someone not only heard your words, but felt your emotions. It's rare, isn't it? In a world that often prioritizes efficiency over connection, empathy stands out as an act of defiance, a choice to slow down, to notice, and to care. A woman who has mastered the art of empathy becomes an unstoppable force because she offers something that everyone longs for, but few dare to provide: genuine understanding. Empathy is not sympathy. Sympathy says, I'm sorry you're feeling this way. It keeps a certain distance, acknowledging pain without truly stepping into it. Empathy, on the other hand, says, I feel this with you. I understand what this moment means to you. It's an act of courage, a willingness to sit with someone in their vulnerability without trying to fix it, dismiss it, or turn away from it. For men, encountering this level of empathy can be both humbling and transformative. Society often teaches men to suppress their emotions, to handle their struggles silently and privately, but when they meet a woman who can look past the stoic exterior and recognize the emotions beneath, It's as though she's unlocked a part of them they didn't even realize was hidden. This is the power of empathetic women. They see what others overlook. They don't just notice the obvious. They pick up on the subtle cues, the unsaid words, and the weight of silence. They recognize when someone's laughter is hiding pain, when someone's anger is masking fear, or when someone's withdrawal is a sign of overwhelm. And they respond not with judgment or impatience, but with compassion. But make no mistake, empathy is not passive. It requires immense strength. To truly empathize, you have to put aside your own assumptions and step into someone else's world. You have to listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart. You have to be willing to feel discomfort, to face emotions that might scare you, and to hold space for someone else's experience without trying to make it about you. Women who embody empathy possess an extraordinary ability to create safety in their relationships. They offer a refuge, a place where others can let down their guard and be fully themselves. For men who are often taught to wear emotional armor, this can feel like a revelation. It's an invitation to be vulnerable in a way that doesn't feel weak, but instead feels freeing. And yet, empathy is not just about understanding pain, it's also about recognizing joy. An empathetic woman celebrates your victories as if they were her own. She sees your potential even when you doubt yourself, and she reminds you of your worth when you forget it. Her empathy doesn't just meet you in your darkest moments, it lifts you in your brightest ones. There's a quiet confidence in a woman who leads with empathy. She doesn't need to dominate a conversation or prove her point because she's not operating from a place of ego. Her focus is outward, understanding, and connecting, not on winning or being right. This humility, paired with her deep emotional intelligence, makes her influence all the more powerful. Men often find themselves drawn to women like this because they feel seen, heard, and valued in ways they may never have experienced before. In her presence, they can let go of the need to perform, to impress, or to pretend. They can simply be. And in a world that constantly demands more, this kind of acceptance feels like a rare and precious gift. But empathy is not without its challenges. To feel deeply is to risk being hurt. To understand others is to sometimes carry their pain. And yet, empathetic women embrace this risk because they know the alternative. Disconnection, indifference, isolation is far worse. They choose to lean in, to care deeply, and to give generously of themselves, even when it's not easy. This kind of strength is what makes empathy so powerful. It's not about avoiding pain, but about facing it head on, knowing that connection is worth the cost. It's about showing up fully, even when the emotions are messy or the answers aren't clear, and it's about reminding others that they are not alone, no matter what they're going through. For men, encountering this kind of empathy can be life-changing. It challenges them to rethink what strength really means. It invites them to step into their own capacity for empathy, to connect on a deeper level, and to embrace emotions they've been taught to suppress. And so women who lead with empathy are not just powerful, they are transformative. They don't just change the people around them, they change the way we understand connection, humanity, and strength. And that is a power no one can resist. There is an undeniable magic in the art of storytelling. Stories have the power to transport us, to change the way we see the world, and to connect us in ways that facts and logic alone cannot. A woman who masters this art doesn't just share her experiences. She creates a shared space where emotions, lessons, and humanity converge. Her words have a way of lingering, not because they are loud or flashy, but because they speak directly to the heart. When a woman tells a story, she invites you into her world. She takes you on a journey, painting pictures with her words, her gestures, and her tone. But her stories are not just about her. They are about you too. They are mirrors, reflecting truths you may not have had the courage to face. And they are bridges, connecting you to experiences you may never have lived. For men, this can be a powerful and humbling experience. Society often encourages men to approach the world through action, problem solving, and analysis. But stories require something different. They demand listening, empathy, and the willingness to feel. A woman who weaves her experiences into a narrative challenges men to step out of their heads and into their hearts. What makes a storyteller truly powerful isn't just her ability to recount events, it's her ability to infuse her stories with emotion, vulnerability, and meaning. She doesn't just tell you what happened, she tells you why it mattered, how it changed her, and what it taught her about herself and the world. Through her storytelling, she invites you to consider your own life in the same way. Think about the moments when someone's story has stayed with you. It's rarely the polished, picture-perfect tales that linger. It's the raw, unfiltered ones. The stories of failure, heartbreak, resilience, and triumph. These are the stories that resonate because they remind us of our shared humanity. A woman who dares to tell these kinds of stories wields a unique kind of power. She doesn't need to convince you of her worth or authority. Her authenticity does that for her. And today, in today's Striving for Perfection episode, we are going to tell the story of an amazing woman who storytelling is not about perfection. In fact, it's the imperfections, the pauses, the sighs, the moments of hesitation that make a story real. When a woman tells a story, she isn't just sharing information, she's sharing a piece of herself. She's saying, this is who I am, and this is what I've learned. And in doing so, she creates a connection that transcends words. For men who are often taught to avoid vulnerability, listening to these stories can be both challenging and transformative. It's not just about hearing what she's saying, it's about feeling it. Her story becomes a gateway to understanding emotions and experiences that may have been buried or ignored. It's a reminder that strength isn't about avoiding pain, it's about embracing it and finding meaning in it. And yet, storytelling isn't just about the heavy emotional moments. It's also about joy, humor, and the small, seemingly insignificant details that make life beautiful. A woman who can tell a story about an ordinary day and make it extraordinary demonstrates an ability to find meaning in the mundane. She teaches us to slow down, to notice, and to appreciate the richness of our own lives. The power of storytelling lies not only in its ability to connect, but also in its ability to inspire. A woman who shares her dreams, her failures, and her triumphs gives others permission to dream, to fail, and to triumph as well. Her stories become a roadmap showing what's possible when we dare to take risks and embrace life fully. Men often find themselves captivated by women who tell stories because they offer something that can't be easily quantified or measured, a glimpse into the soul. In a world that often prioritizes efficiency and results, storytelling slows things down and reminds us of what truly matters. It shifts the focus from doing to being, from achieving to experiencing, and from competing to connecting. But storytelling, isn't just a gift, it's a skill, a muscle that grows stronger with practice. Women who excel at storytelling have honed their ability to observe, to reflect, and to translate their experiences into narratives that resonate. They listen as much as they speak, drawing from the world around them to create stories that are rich with insight and emotion. And here's the thing, the best storytellers don't tell you what to think or feel. They simply share their truth and let you find your own meaning within it. A woman who tells her story with authenticity doesn't need to force her perspective. Her honesty speaks for itself. Her story becomes an invitation, not to agree or disagree, but to reflect, to feel, and to grow. For men who may not always feel comfortable expressing their own emotions, these stories can be transformative. They offer a language for feelings that are often left unspoken and a framework for understanding experiences that are difficult to articulate. They remind men that they too have stories worth telling, and they invite them to step into a space of greater openness and connection. So why are men so drawn to women who tell stories? Because these women are not just narrators, they are guides, mentors, and companions on the journey of life. Their stories remind us that we are not alone, that our struggles and triumphs are part of a larger tapestry, and that there is beauty in every chapter. No matter how messy or uncertain it may be, in the end, the power of storytelling isn't just about words. It's about the connection those words create, the emotions they evoke, and the transformations they inspire. A woman who understands this doesn't just hold power, she shares it. And in doing so, she leaves a lasting impact on everyone who has the privilege of hearing her story. Power is often thought of in terms of control, dominance, or the ability to command attention and influence outcomes. But when we take a closer look at what truly moves people, what truly changes hearts and minds, we find that power is far more nuanced. It's not about how loudly you speak or how forcefully you act. It's about the strength of your presence, the clarity of your values, and your ability to inspire others to see the world differently. There is something extraordinary about a woman who redefines power in this way. She doesn't seek to overpower or intimidate. She doesn't feel the need to impose her will or assert her dominance. Instead, her power comes from a deep-rooted sense of self and an unwavering commitment to authenticity. She knows who she is, and because of that, she doesn't need to prove it to anyone else. This kind of power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand recognition or validation. It simply exists, quiet, steady, and undeniable. It's the kind of power that draws people in, not because they are compelled to follow, but because they want to. It's rooted in respect, not fear, and it inspires collaboration rather than competition. A woman who embodies this kind of power understands that it's not about control, but about influence. And influence doesn't come from telling people what to do. It comes from showing them what's possible. It comes from living in alignment with your values, even when it's difficult. It comes from leading with empathy and compassion rather than judgment or criticism. And it comes from being willing to listen as much as you speak, recognizing that true power is as much about understanding others as it is about being understood. For men, encountering a woman who redefines power in this way can be both humbling and transformative. It challenges long-held notions of what power looks like and who is entitled to wield it. It shifts the focus from external achievements to internal strength, from dominance to collaboration, and from control to connection. This redefinition of power is particularly compelling because it's not tied to status or position. It's not about how much money you have, what title you hold, or how many people report to you. It's about how you show up in the world, how you treat others, how you handle adversity, and how you remain true to yourself in the face of pressure or criticism. When a woman redefines power in this way, she creates a new standard. She reminds us that power doesn't have to be loud or aggressive to be effective. It can be soft yet strong, quiet yet commanding. It can be rooted in humility rather than arrogance, and it can serve others rather than serving itself. This kind of power is especially disarming because it's so unexpected. We're conditioned to see power as something that takes, demands, or asserts. But when we encounter power that gives, uplifts, and inspires, it stops us in our tracks. It forces us to rethink our assumptions and consider new possibilities. And yet this redefinition of power is not without its challenges. It requires immense courage to lead in a way that goes against the grain, to reject the traditional trappings of power in favor of something more meaningful. It requires resilience to stay true to your values when others question or doubt you. And it requires patience to build influence through connection and trust rather than force or manipulation. But the rewards are profound. A woman who redefines power in this way not only transforms the way people see her, she transforms the way they see themselves. She shows them that power isn't something you take, it's something you cultivate. It's not about controlling others, it's about mastering yourself. And it's not about what you have or what you've achieved, it's about who you are and how you make others feel. For men, this can be a revelation. It challenges the traditional, often rigid definitions of masculinity that equate power with dominance and vulnerability with weakness. It invites them to embrace a more balanced and nuanced understanding of strength, one that values connection over control and authenticity over pretense. In the end, to redefine power is to reclaim it not as something external and fleeting, but as something internal and enduring. It's about recognizing that true power isn't about what you can do to others. It's